Hello! Welcome everyone to our student town hall. We are going to begin. Just to introduce who we are and who is sitting in front of you right now. My name is Sam Zeno. I'm the Undergraduate Student Government Vice President.
My name is Kush Patel. I'm the Student Events and Organizations Committee Chair.
Sorry, I have our backs to you.
So we'll begin by having our panelists introduce themselves. You may begin, Luna.
My name is Yuechan. I'm the President of Graduate Student Development.
Hello, my name is Mitrano. I'm a senior graduating in May, and I'm the undergraduate student body president.
And I'm Katherine Newman. I'm the interim chancellor, and I don't need one of these.
No, you do not need one, Chancellor. My name is Sara. I'm your student trustee, and I serve on the board of trustees of the UMass system.
Hello, everyone. I'm Gail DiSabatino, and I'm your Vice-Chancellor for Student Affairs.
Amazing, thank you very much. So the purpose of this town hall, to briefly mention, and thank you all very much for being here, is that we, as a student government, are working to increase the campus morale and increase the student perspective of the fact that you are the priority on campus. So this is our initial event and what we're calling our Students First, Students Always campaign. And this will consist not only of this town hall, but of student organization, volunteer organization, athletic showcases, as well as student affairs showcases to show off all of the events that have all the events and the successes of our groups on campus and of our students here. This will also include our mental health week, which will be the last week of April. So keep an eye out for these events as they come along because they're all in place to support all of the students. So we'll have about an hour of, if I may have already mentioned, of questions that were pre-submitted in our tabling that the student government has been doing in the weeks prior to this. And then we will be having an opportunity for audience questions to be answered. And then if you're here and you may have to leave early, or if your question does not, if we don't get to it, we have disappeared, but on the, what do you call these, televisions, we have all of the contact information of our panelists, as well as a link that we set up in order to continue to have your questions answered. So it's a website. Not only will it be an opportunity to answer your questions as time goes along, but you can also find the recorded town hall on there. So we're going to get going with our questions, and Kush will ask the first question to our panel.
Just before we begin, just a few things to plug. If you're a student, in the back by Shelby, there is the tap card. So if anyone, as you're coming in or towards the end, if you have to leave, if you could just tap your beacon card, that'd be greatly appreciated. And then tomorrow from 8 to 9:30 p.m., we're going to be with Vice-Chancellor DiSabatino. There's going to be a safety walk along with other campus administrators and other students to just go around the campus and see what areas might need to be, look at increase of safety. So I just wanted to plug those two things. So we'll begin with the general questions. This is anyone on the panel can answer if they know any information on it. So this is the first question from the general questions. The Rape Aggression Defense course has been severely underfunded. Is it possible to revisit this for this budget and grant more funding?
So I think I'm the best one to answer that question. And the police department, if you're wondering why there have been so many police in and out here, is because they are part of student affairs. And so I think they're here to support the boss and to be sure that I answer these questions right. They're not here because they think that anything like is going to happen. So thank you all to our student cadets too for being here. Thank you for being here today. So the RAD program, the Rape Aggression Defense course, is sponsored by our police department, thanks to Officer Coviella back there, and it has had great interest sometimes. And so, quite honestly, we've had periods of time where it may appear as though we don't have funding because we're not offering it as much because the participation rates have not been consistent. And so we only have 1 or 2 people that are signing up to attend. We have to cancel and then reschedule so we can get a larger group. So we really haven't, there's not really been a limitation in the budget. Limitation sometimes is in the space because of course it's a number of weeks of programming, and so you have to reserve the space, and students who I know here in the room who are actively engaged know that it's sometimes hard to get space on campus. So that's sometimes a limitation, but we do partner with Suffolk University to offer this program, and we do it there. Their students can come here, our students can go there. So it's not really been a budget limitation as much as a space and participation limitation.
Next question is general question 3. How do you expect students to graduate in a reasonable amount of time when departments don't have reasonable teacher-to-student ratios in mandatory classes, especially when teachers only intend on passing half the class due to his or her teaching style and lack of teachers in this department?
I think, Emily, if you want to take that, we know what's being referred to here.
Hi, I'm Emily McDermott. I'm interim provost and vice-chancellor for academic affairs. So this question comes to me. This issue came to me in the middle of the semester when it was raised. And as I understand the basic facts, my office is within the facts, and I think we've got a pretty good handle on what happened in this case. There was a computer science course, a 300-level computer science course, cross-listed with math, that had an original enrollment cap of 75 students. So many students were on the wait list that the professor kindly but perhaps imprudently decided to take an extra 20 students into the class. So he accepted over 90 students into the class at that point. As the semester went on, he was having trouble dealing with the number of homeworks he had assigned for the class, and so he cut out some problem sets from the syllabus. The students then took the first exam, and half of them failed the first exam. And that's when it became apparent to everybody that he needed more help dealing with the problem sets in the class, and the students, I think, misunderstood something that he said in class, which was intended to tell them, they really needed to study harder for the future to do better on the next 2 exams. They misinterpreted that. He talked about having to get 60% to pass the test. I believe some of them interpreted that as meaning that 60% of them he wanted to fail. He says he made no message like that. It was a confusion. Students came to the chancellor and me about it, and as it got sorted out, we realized, okay, he needed another grader, he needed a TA to help the present TA in the class. That was added by the department to the class. He agreed to drop the first exam or the worst exam during the course of the semester. The Vice Provost for Academic and Student Affairs, for Academic Support Services, established tutoring services for anybody in the class who needed help. So we reacted to it, I think, quickly and with concern for student success. I know students were upset, but I think they were upset because they misunderstood what the professor was saying in the class. I hope everything is going better at this point. I've written to all the students in the class explaining what happened, and they're free to come back if things aren't sorted out, but I haven't heard back, so I'm assuming that they are sorted out.
Thank you. This next question is for the Chancellor. What is the status of the master plan for new buildings on campus?
Well, actually, I think I'm going to ask Kathleen Kearless to help us with this, because she's responsible for helping lead the program of developing a master plan. We've come to the end of the existing master plan. It's trying to define a new one for the next probably decade or so. Certainly, I would love to see the pump house and the region around it developed. We know that we need some additional academic capacity because the Science Center, as you probably all know, is going to come down. The Science Center is going to be pulverized and made into a beautiful courtyard. But all of the departments that were in the Science Center now need new homes, and we don't have really the kind of high-quality permanent homes we'd like to have for those programs, including, for example, our exceptionally distinguished nursing school. So we know that there's some things that we need to build just to accommodate the departments that are being moved. But Kathleen, do you want to add to that?
It's a
Good afternoon. I'm Kathleen. I'm the Vice-Chancellor for Administration and Finance here at the university. So the college university has a campus master plan, as the Chancellor mentions. It's approaching completion of a major part. So for campus master planning process, the university we plan to go out next fiscal year to engage a consultant to begin us on an update of that campus master plan. Looking at that in conjunction with the strategic plan in the university as well as the academic master plan that's been being developed over the past year. So at that point, when we have someone on board, we'll be working to engage all parts of the campus community around the planning process, including students. So there will be opportunities for students to be involved in the process as we do this during the next academic year. We will be looking at what the long-term needs of the university are from a capital perspective, as well as some of the funding that will be potentially available to enable us to implement a capital master plan.
Thank you. This next question is for the Vice-Chancellor. As Vice-Chancellor of Student Affairs, how are you helping LGBTQ students feel safe on campus? And how are you going to make student life for LGBTQ students at UMass safer and have them feel like they're included other than in the month of June? I believe the Q Club isn't enough and there's need for more representation.
I think this is a great question and one I've been asked recently and have been given a great deal of thought to, because I think that we have done some things well here and we have a lot of work to do. So let me first address that I appreciate the work of the Q and the students who have been involved in that work. And I also appreciate the work of some of the staff within the Division of Student Affairs who have led some efforts, especially in the area of health and wellness, to support our LGBT community. I do think that we are lax in the way of having specifically identified resources that would address our community and be more responsive. Some of those resources exist, they're just not identified very well throughout the campus. I would also tell you that the director of our counseling center this is a point of interest to her and one in which she has had some exceptional training in. So I think that we have some people who are responding well, and I do think that we can do more. There is a group of people that have decided that they would come together, and I'm going to work with them to kind of formally make this some kind of a committee or a task force like we've done with the immigrant student program. There's also, with this group of people that are starting to informally come together, they're talking now about having us engage in the Campus Pride Index, which will enable us to do a little bit better job of assessing ourselves and figuring out the specific areas in which we may need to improve upon. So those are just some examples. I think we have a ways to go, and like I said, I appreciate the work that's been done by very few resources that we have to address many of our students on campus and their special needs and special interests.
Okay, our next question is regarding a hot topic on campus. What is your reaction to, and this can be, anyone can answer this, what is your reaction to the student, staff, and faculty backlash from recent parking policies, and what are some ways of making the parking more affordable to students?
I think the first thing I would like to say is that none of us likes to have to raise costs of anything for you, because we recognize that you work incredibly hard to afford your education and that is not a simple matter. The parking rates on campus have not been raised for 14 years. Meanwhile, various costs have gone up that we are obligated to recover. Otherwise, we're using your tuition dollars to subsidize parking at an even greater rate than we are now, and we really can't do very much more of that. I would also say that about 2/3 of the students are on public transit, so the parking rates don't actually affect what I think is in many ways a more serious problem, which is how do we find a way to make the T or other forms of public transit more affordable for the majority of our students who are using public transit. I use it myself every day. And so if I were able to do this, and I know there is a measure before you, or will be, I believe, that students are voting on if they haven't already. They already have to create a fund to help subsidize the tea. That's what I would most like to do, is to both persuade the city of Boston to help support students on public transit as they do K through 12 students who ride public transit for free. And in fact, Michelle Wu on the city council has proposed that it should be free for all college students, which I think would be a tremendous contribution, no doubt one that would be difficult for the MBTA to swallow, but nonetheless, I think it would be very valuable. In the meantime, we have ensured that students pay the lowest rate of anyone on campus by design. We absolutely insisted in all the collective bargaining agreements that the students had the lowest possible rate, and we will maintain that posture. So we certainly want to see you, want to see this as limited a hit as possible. This is one of the reasons why parking and travel in general, or transportation in general, is built into the financial aid process. Students are able to, those who are qualifying for financial aid, which is the vast majority of our students, can include transportation as one of their costs of education, and therefore financial aid helps to subsidize the cost of transportation. So in all of these ways, making sure the students have the lowest, pay the lowest, that it's part of financial aid, that we are working with you to develop subsidies for the T, which will affect by far in a positive way the vast majority of you. And that truthfully, the parking fees have not increased at all in 14 years. And in the meantime, we've got a new parking facility, which we had no choice but to construct. And it has to pay for itself. And that's just part of what happens to any auxiliary service of that kind. So that's what I can tell you so far. And Kathleen, do you want to add anything to that, or if I covered the bases? Okay, thank you.
Just on the fee that the Chancellor mentioned, last week, the undergraduate and graduate student governments had their elections, where there was 2 referendum questions. One of them was to create a MBTA subsidy fund of $20 a semester, and this fund would go to have the MBTA, which is subsidizes 11% for students, it would now go up to 50%. And this fee would only, the wording is a lot, and so it was 50%, and then if the fee ever, or the MBTA ever said we're gonna make the MBTA free for college students, the fee would disappear. This passed by 52% to I believe 47%. Shelby, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 52 to 47 and it did pass. It still has to go through approval of the Board of Trustees, but most likely there will be this subsidy fee added to your tuition for the next academic year.
Thank you very much. This next question is directed towards President Mitrano. What is the most difficult task you've had this year as USG President?
Okay. I wouldn't say there was a single task that was difficult. I think something that has been discouraging would be participation on campus. And this could go I just chaired the elections that I was just talking about, and every single race was uncontested. Student body president, vice president, student trustee, and all student senators were uncontested. I see on this campus as we are also politically active, and that we do not fear of any retaliation from administration, which is amazing. They're very open. As you can see, there's so many vice chancellors and other admins in this room that want to hear what students have to say and want to have this change. And everybody talks that they want all of these changes, yet nobody wants to act upon it. And that shows with the amount of students that are in this room versus administrators, how many people ran for student government, and how many people we have said, hey, like, do you want to submit a question? No, I'm okay. Or hey, do you even want to vote? No, I'm good. We gave out free donut cards. We're like, hey, if you want a free donut downstairs, you just have to vote. And people would say, I'm all set. And so I think that is very discouraging to me. And the biggest task that I've tried to is saying, okay, if we all want these changes and we all see issues like parking or the MBTA fee or the science building coming down or this legacy debt that this campus has been kind of stuck with, and yet no students want to act, or very little students want to act upon it, that's an issue. And I think that's why I kind of blurted out this idea of doing a town hall and a meeting with Gail and Sam had looked at me and said, that's a really good idea, let's do it. I'm like, nah, she goes, no, we're doing it. And so, and I think this campaign is to try to increase that morale and get students like all of you that want to promote that change and have it more than just a handful of you. We have this undergrad student population of 12,000 students. There should be more than 500 people voting in a student government election. There should be more than 40 people running for a student government election. There should be more than a few hundred people involved in clubs. Like, we should have such an active campus, especially where we are in Boston and this student population that we are. And that's the biggest, I guess you can call, task, is trying to increase that. And I haven't been able to find the answers to it. I hope this starts it, and I hope that future student leaders can continue it. But that would be my biggest task that I have frankly not completed.
And we appreciate your work. And the next question is for our GSA President, Luna. How engaged are grad students on this campus? And do they take any stock in what's happening on this campus?
Thank you for this question. I would tend to agree with Katie on this. The participation rate and the involvement of students on campus is far from what we hope for. While we see that graduate students are doing their job, are achieving academic success, are achieving professional success, that our involvement has been improving, we would like to see more active students in student activities. That being said, at GSA, from GSA perspective, we have been seeing increase in the involvement. For example, we gave out 110 conference travel grant, and half of the applicants are new applicants, meaning we have been reaching out to them. There have been new students trying to get involved with student activities. And we have this year, almost all of our funds for student clubs have been given out, and those are all signs of student involvement. But I agree with our other panelists that student involvement has to be improved. And I would welcome any of our students who want to make the change, be the change that you want to see on this campus, to get involved.
Thank you. This next question is for student trustee Tariq. What is your experience attending board meetings? Are the other board members respectful of the students?
Thank you for the question. Yes, they're very respectful. I think only on the college campuses is this position called student trustee. When you go to board meetings, you're just like any other trustee. Your point of view is just as important as any other member on the board. And I think that's very important, whether you're a voting student or not. I have a vote this year. For those of you who don't know, there are 5 student trustees on the board of trustees. They're elected from each of the 5 UMass campuses, and 2 of them have a vote, so it like rotates. This year, I have a vote, and the Dartmouth trustee has a vote, which gives us more, I guess, like more power, but like they really listen to like the students who have the vote and the students who do not have the vote. That's like our job is to provide that student perspective, and I'm really like glad and I'm very happy to say that they do take that in account very much.
Thank you, Sara. Our next question is a general question. Would you consider increasing the funding to the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion to provide more staff to support our diverse campus? 2 administrators and an intern in that office does not suffice our minority-majority campus. A lot of our pressure is placed on the centers to be representatives for diversity. However, there should be more administrators or advisors to support the centers and groups of diversity. What do you intend to do as leaders of this diverse institution to further support your diverse student body?
Take that, and Georgiana, you may want to take that too. So let me just say that this is the first time in my entire career that I've heard people call for more administrators. It doesn't happen. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not sure more administrators is what we need. What I think we need to do to support our diverse student body is increase financial aid, is make sure that we have a robust faculty that can provide you with the education that you need, that diversity is everyone's business, not one office's business, that a flourishing community of clubs and activities and classes and students from all corners of the world is what we need to be a diverse campus. I am actually very proud of the work that Georgiana Melendez does to support the diversity mission here. We work together, the 2 of us, She works with many other communities and groups on our campus. Just today, we were meeting with some colleagues from Hack Diversity. How many of you know what Hack Diversity is? Anybody? One person? Hack Diversity is a nonprofit organization that exists to try and help students from underrepresented groups gain valuable skills and knowledge that will help them crack into the high-income tech fields in Boston. And they come on our campus, as they do many other campuses, to help provide a sort of leg up and training in interview techniques and on the technical side of the tech industry. And she and I were just meeting with them to talk about how we can learn from their experience and generalize to other things that could be done for thousands of students, because generally speaking, they're able to do this for a handful. It's a very intensive program, very effective, but at the end of the day, when it's a huge roaring success story, there might be 8 students who get through this, which is wonderful for those 8 students, but it's not going to do a whole lot for the 3,000 some odd students who, for example, are in the College of Science and Mathematics. So we want to learn from them, and Georgiana is going to be organizing this activity. What can we learn from what they're doing that could be translated through career services in the classroom and in other domains, resume writing, all the different areas that they learn in Hack Diversity? What can we do to transfer that knowledge to many, many more students than we do? I think the residence halls have become an important site of diversity. We spent $1.4 million this year, and we will repeat that performance next year to create campus living grants that enable the dorms to be much more diverse economically, ethnically, in every respect, internationally, to create a campus living community that reflects the campus itself. So I think there are many things that we can do to support a diverse campus, and I'm not sure that adding administrators would be the first thing I would think of. Georgiana, do you want to add to this in any way?
Please do. I don't have much to add except for to take advantage of the opportunity to say we do have a diversity climate survey that's coming out, should be out today. And I know participation in voting was challenging, but this is also an opportunity for everyone to say what the campus climate is like. It's for students, staff, and faculty. So encourage all of your classmates and your faculty members in your classrooms to participate so that we know what it's really like for each of you on campus, and together we can address any of the concerns that come from it.
So I'd like to add, I would agree. I don't think necessarily we need a whole bunch of administrators. And we've heard that, I've heard that as well. What we have done in student affairs, and Steve Neville, I thought I saw you back there, he's hiding, has been working for the last year and a half as the Assistant Vice-Chancellor for Student Affairs and trying to help us take our centers and our cultural organizations to the next level. We recognize that that's a lot for one person to do, so as I had an opportunity with an administrator leaving the university to retool a position, we were able to find some dollars to create a new program coordinator that will work directly with their student organizations, because there's so many of you that need just lots of leadership training, help with getting through the bureaucracy of this place, trying to coordinate efforts. And so we do have the funding, and we've hired someone temporarily to assist to get us through the spring and all the activities this semester, and hopefully we'll have a successful search for that program coordinator that will assist Steve and Hanata. I don't know, I'd see if Hanata was here as well. They're doing some great work to assist the student clubs and organizations and the centers, and we're trying to expand that assistance to you as we move along.
Great, thank you. This is a question directed towards the Chancellor. Students seeking counsel at UHS have to wait months to book an appointment. This is unsafe and very concerning. Our students of diversity do not feel represented or supported by the Counseling Center. As our Chancellor, what do you intend to do about this issue?
So I probably will call on the head of the Counseling Center, Rob Gonzalez, who is responsible for the Counseling Center, to help me answer this question. But let me just say that this is a national problem. Nationally, there is a huge spike in demand for counseling services all across the country. In fact, I have seen, in every university I've worked for, and that's quite a few now, I've seen graphs and they just go like this. And there's a whole bunch of reasons for that. One is that a more diverse student population is coming to us, and the Americans with Disabilities Act has encouraged that, and we encourage it as well. The other is that I think, fortunately, there's a declining stigma associated with seeking counseling, and that's also to the good. And finally, it's very difficult to find counseling resources in whether you're in rural areas where the counselors are scarce or in urban areas where the demand is very high. We have been working on programs that will, we hope, speed those resources to you. We've been working on an agreement just this week. I believe we've come to a conclusion around it that will, it will be a sort of a new approach that no other campus in the country has used, and we'll talk about it when we have more latitude to do so. I know as well that our colleagues in the Counseling Center use a very thoughtful approach to triage. They make every effort to get to students who are in more serious distress first, and try to tier their support to the most serious cases first, which I think is appropriate. But I don't know, Rob, do you want to speak to this? Because he's far more knowledgeable than I am about what we do to support students who need mental health resources.
Sure, thank you. I do want to reiterate that, in fact, we do accommodate all walk-in and emergencies. So when a student is in distress, we will see them on demand. There is a wait, a significant wait at some points in the year, up to 5 weeks, sometimes 6, for ongoing counseling. We do have resources in the community we work with to refer students out to counseling. However, many of the communities around us are actually federally designated shortage areas for mental health counselor professionals. So that can also be quite an obstacle and barrier. But we do address students in distress on demand. We do have a 24/7 crisis line available to all students that is answered by licensed mental health professionals who can advise them on how to deal with the immediate situation and refer them back to us for follow-up care. We do have a very diverse staff in our counseling center as well. About 30% of our staff are racial ethnic minorities. And we have a significant number of graduate students assigned to us every year, and that particular group of graduate students is very reflective of the student population at large. So we do make efforts to address the needs of racial ethnic minorities on campus.
Let me add to the conversation that I think our counseling staff, along with our health educators and the general medicine staff under Rob's leadership, have been very diligent in trying to understand what it is that our students need. And through some good work with the survey, and they're doing a follow-up survey, some of you may have already gotten it this week, Healthy Mind Survey, they learned that anxiety was one of the highest issues for our students. And so in light of discovering that that's one, but that was probably the highest, if I'm not mistaken, Rob, and in light of the data, the results that they got back, have implemented some programs that now aren't necessarily additional counselors, but have brought Kuru to campus, this mindfulness program that has a lot of students have taken advantage of. In addition to that, through their good work, we have been able to get a grant so that we can offer mental health first aid for our staff, for fellow students, and for faculty to take part in, so that we can all help to contribute to a healthy campus. It takes a lot of work, and as our chancellor pointed out, this is a national problem that there are not enough resources, and there probably never will be enough. So we try to come at it from different angles.
Thank you. And this is just a follow-up question. What are your thoughts on looking to some sort of online counseling, as that has been kind of gaining traction among other students and individuals in general?
Happy to answer that. Well, certainly there are a number of vendors and products out there that provide that service. We are at this point skeptical. There is not a lot of data out there that indicates that it is in fact useful. or helpful to people using it. So we are being very careful. We're evaluating data, and if we find that it might be a good resource to have, we will certainly do our best to implement it.
Thank you. A general question. Would you be willing to have the campus eventually commit to 100% renewable energy?
I think all of us care a great deal about sustainability and renewable energy. If I knew that it was possible to do that in a way that was affordable and efficient, I would be the first to sign up for it. To be perfectly honest, I don't know whether that's possible. I don't know of any campus that's 100% renewable energy. But I think all campuses, especially in the UMass system, where we have a robust student interest and a robust faculty and staff interest in sustainability, are doing everything possible to lean in that direction. So for example, when I was on the Amherst campus, we had solar panels put over all the parking lots that began generating solar energy that was captured for the use of the campus. I was asking just the other day whether or not that's something that we could do on the, I don't know, on the rooftop of the new parking garage, or if we have surface parking in the future, because that has been a good source. Obviously here on the waterfront, wind energy is a very desirable commodity and something that I know the state of Massachusetts is very interested in and derives a lot of energy from wind energy. I don't know that the campus has a specific program around that. But I think all of us are very much in a green mode, so to speak, and to the extent that we can move in that direction, more power to us, literally.
And USG just passed a legislation, and I'm going to get it wrong, so if anybody here is in USG, please correct me. We signed to ask admin, it was by 2045. Was it 100% renewable by 2045? And this was with the help of Massberg, who's been doing a lot of work with this. I know there was some, I believe the city of Boston has tried to work towards this a 2045 year, so USG has signed and will hopefully be working with Massberg in the future to try to get a sustainability director on campus. I know that's something that a few of our current senators have been interested in, again, working with Massberg on that as well.
Thank you. This next question is to Gail. With housing now, what are plans to make this campus more of a 24/7 community?
Well, you can go online and read our report as a starting point. We've been very active in trying to make our campus more like a 24/7 that you probably have seen your friends attend. We've been 24/7 for a long time. I mean, students have been students 24 hours a day for a very long time. So this is not totally new. So I think what you're asking about might be more activities on campus and more responsiveness after 5 o'clock and on the weekends. And what I would tell you is that we did some, in the past year, 2 years, we've done some very foundational work to be able to be really supportive and responsive to students 24 hours a day. And so through the Dean of Students office, we now have systems in place that if something happens with a student, even though our police were always here, there just wasn't the student support system in place to respond. And so we've worked on that, and we feel like we're doing much better at the response to students. And like Rob mentioned, having this 24-hour call-in service. So if there's a crisis, you're in a crisis, you have a 24-hour call-in, you can call the police department, who will contact the administrator on call. There are lots of options for you. From a social perspective, our students have been working with some of our staff in the Student Activities Office. They've been collaborating across the campus with recreation and athletics. It's not as robust as I think some people might want it to be, but we've made great headway. Beacons at Night has been a great addition, and there have been lots of folks in this room who have been involved with that. We had a trip to Six Flags. We had a blackout dodgeball night. We had a trip to New York City. We've had skiing. We had a winter carnival. We had beacons on, what's that thing, that program called?
Beacons at Night.
Yeah, no, it was like.
Lawn on UMass.
Lawn on UMass.
Oh,
Yeah. We've got this Sky Zone Glow Night coming up. So we're working to develop these things, and we're having pretty good results. We're also trying to get students to come out to the athletic events that have always been here. And from time to time, we're seeing much more crowded stands, and so that's exciting. So little by little, we're working on those social aspects, and really that takes the students to let us know what you want. Our RAs have been very involved in trying to do programming that is, and a number of their programs, even though the RAs work in the residence hall, their programs are often open to all students. We have a block party, I think that's coming up. Is that still in the plans? A block party that the RAs are doing all the work on, but it will be open to everyone. The learning communities that we have in the residence hall, they're based in the residence hall, they're open to everyone. So I think our biggest challenge is getting connected to all of you to let you know about all of these things. UMB Involved is an initiative that we started last year. Actually, it's been around for a long time, but we really got students engaged with it over the last year. And they have, there are lots and lots of things. If you just go on and look for something going on, there are a lot of things to do. In terms of safety, we have expanded our cadets, our student cadet program. We have, I think, about 15 cadets. That's a great addition to the campus in terms of safety, but of course we've expanded our police force as well. So we have more police that are present on campus. What did I miss in terms of 24/7? We got a lot going on, and we're going to continue to try to meet those needs and offer more. Yeah, breakfast the Monday of finals week. That's open to all students. Any student who wants to come at I think it's at 10, 9 o'clock. You look for the information. Now, I will tell you, students, we can't do this alone. You need to help us figure out what are the right things to do, and you also need to help us figure out how to connect with you more effectively, so that you can be very aware of what's going on.
Thank you. This is another general question that might fall under you, Gail. As a freshman, I found it very difficult to find out about general events and happenings. Is there a way besides email to advertise the many opportunities on campus?
Yeah, whoever has to ask that question, tell me what to do. It is a challenge. UMB Involved is a great place to find out what's going on. I've been so impressed with how student organizations and departments across the campus have been adding their events to that calendar. So that's UMB Involved. We also sent out a digest. So instead of sending out individual emails of all the events, we stopped that last year and we created this digest so you could get weekly updates. I think that our mass media has, I know they have a calendar every time I open the paper, so that's there. It's a cluttered world with information, there's no question, but those opportunities to find the information are out there. We're also more engaged with social media. We've been working with student government on that. Instagram, what are the other ones? Snapchat. Yeah. I'm learning. I thought it was going to be Twitter, like I learned how to do that, and then they said, no, students don't do that. So we're getting there, and we are welcoming all of your input on how to do it better.
Thank you.
Our next question is, can you restore funding for the Joiner Center for Vets?
So the provost sent out a memo to the community today, at least to the faculty community. I'm not sure who else. To the whole, not to students, but to everyone. We do have a very robust and wonderfully active community of centers and institutes, of which the Joiner is one example. And when the university's budget was analyzed by auditors last year, or 2017, I guess it was, they found that a significant part of the $30 million deficit the campus was required to close, about $5 million of it was attributable to the subsidies that it was providing to centers and institutes. And the then interim chancellor, Barry Mills, created a glide path for all the centers and institutes that were receiving a subsidy over $60,000 a year, intended to bring them closer to self-sufficiency. That it's a long glide path of about 4 or 5 years that sort of gradually reduces that contribution at the same time that we expect and hold ourselves accountable for increasing the amount of attention we pay to fundraising for external resources for very worthy projects like those that the Joiner and the other centers and institutes contribute. But our primary responsibility is to the students and to making sure that your tuition dollars are spent to support the classrooms you're in, the teachers who teach you, the financial aid that you require, and under these conditions of a deficit that has to be cured, in which the trustees have required us to cure, it was the position of the interim chancellor at that time, and I agree with it, and so do the rest of, so does the provost, that we must stick to that glide path, while we also must stick to the plan to look to raise outside resources. This year, for example, a fantastic benefactor came forward to provide $1 million gift to the Gaston Institute, which over the next 4 years will be providing resources to them to the tune of $250,000 a year, and we are matching that so that there is a robust budget there, and that's sort of what we need to try and do for all of the centers and institutes. We believe very much in the work that the Joiner Institute does, which involves a lot of very enriching activities for alumni veterans, writing workshops and things of this sort. Our primary resources for veterans go to supporting existing veteran students. That is, we run a veteran support center. We provide significant resources to support the financial needs of our veteran students, and that is our primary obligation. So we need to be sure, first and foremost, that we are attending to the needs of students. That's what we think you are expecting of us. It's what we think your families are expecting of us. It's what we think the citizens expect should be done with the resources of the state contributions and your tuition dollars. Beyond that, we do the best we can to support other activities, but we need to move towards self-sufficiency for this particular center and all the others. Many of which, by the way, are exactly there. Many of the centers and institutes are self-sufficient. They're bringing in grant money. They are performing on contracts that are very supportive. For example, one of our centers and institutes provides technical support to some of the Native American reservations. We're very proud of the work that they do. So we need a mixed model of those kinds of service activities, of external grants. The teaching activity that's done inside the centers and institutes is supported by the university because that's a direct benefit to our students. And that is our highest priority.
Thank you. So we're now going to move to audience questions. The way we're going to do audience questions is that we ask that you just raise your hand, state your name, your major, and what class year you are. So whoever has any questions, just please raise your hand and just kind of follow along. Yeah.
My name is Austin Schofield. I'm a bio major. I actually have a quick question about the greenhouse in the Science Center. I was curious if, this can be for anybody, I don't know who your strength is, but is there any, I understand this is hearsay, I'm not going to throw an accusation up, but I heard that they're taking it down. Is there any plan to install a new one anywhere, or is there any openness to that conversation?
I'm going to call on Kathleen Curlis too. She knows this best.
Sure. So the Science Center is scheduled to come down in the summer of 2020. The university does have a big construction project going on to address a lot of the deferred maintenance that dates back to the very beginning of this campus being built. So the Science Center, the plaza, where the old parking garages, as well as the pool will be being demolished. We'll be replacing that with a quad for the campus community to use, as well as some surface parking towards the end to help address the parking needs that may exist with Bayside. So one of the things in the Science Center is the greenhouse. The university does have limited funding on what we are, as we first relocating many of the academic programs and activities on the Science Center. So there isn't funding right now currently for the greenhouse. That's something that we're looking for some solutions on. So yes, we are open to that conversation. We are looking for solutions, faculty, staff, students, wherever. But right now, that is something that we're still looking to try to figure out how we might fund that and where that might be.
Thank you. Yep.
Hello, my name is Rasheen Mohammed. I'm a freshman communications major here. And the question that I have, Ms. Gail has just stated that you new facilities that you guys are planning to build on this replacements on the existing ones. I want to know what is construction? What's going to be started on first in terms of construction? You said that the science is going to be demolished and replaced with the courtyard. Will the courtyard is the first thing to work?
I'm going to let her explain.
So the first things I would like to invite all of you come. We're going to have a construction open forum on April 29th. So please come to that because we will cover all the construction of the university. So if you have interest in that, please come. But right now, the first thing you're going to see is it's actually work that's underway right now in Wheatley and McCormick. We're doing some enabling work to allow us to move some of the departments and other work activities that are in the Science Center out of the Science Center and into Wheatley, McCormick. And then there also will be some nursing is going to be relocated into the Quinn building. And then the Healy Library also has some activities being relocated. So that's work underway right now. If you go into McCormick or Wheatley, there is work. We have some construction going on. We're really working with faculty, staff, and students to make sure it be as minimally invasive as possible. So a lot is being done at night when there are classroom instruction activities going on. Then the next thing you're going to see is the catwalk. So we are going to be building, part of the catwalk right now is connected to the Science Center. So we're going to be replacing that. We're going to be moving the catwalk so that we will have a completed catwalk before we begin any of the demolition work that would be happening. So the time for that would be, we would like to have all the work done so that everyone's moved out of the Science Center by December 2019. So the end of this calendar year. At that point, the construction folks for the demolition will begin to ready the Science Center for demolition, with the major demolition happening in the summer during the time of the year when there's less students on campus, and that we can get that work done to be least disruptive as possible to the campus community. And then after that after the Science Center that comes down, then we will work on crumbling that all up, getting that, and then putting the dirt on, so there would be both the quad would come into play, and then the parking. Did I answer your question? Okay.
Thank you.
So, and we'll have more information. This is a big project, so we'll have lots of time to talk about it as it comes on. So please come April 29th if you're we can get some more details on it then.
Thank you. Yep.
Hi, my name is Jeff Suddy. I'm a poli-sci major in class of 2019, so I'm out here in May. But my question is actually to you, Chancellor Newman. I have to write everything down, so make sure I say it right, so if you'll excuse me. Last week, you recognized veterans as a crucial part of the UMass Boston community and the university's mission. However, UMB veterans often feel forgotten or marginalized at UMass Boston. In response to this perceived reality, veterans are in the process of lobbying for additional space on campus and support from the administration. What are your thoughts on the establishment of a new Veterans Center, and what can veterans do to garner your support for the establishment of that new center?
Well, let me start by saying I couldn't agree with you more about the importance of veterans on our campus. I frequently talk about how we have 600 veterans on our campus. I'm very proud of the fact that I think for the 6th year in a row, we have been named a Superior Veteran-Friendly Campus, which I think is a huge achievement and a testimony especially to your fearless leaders who provide this kind of enormously important social support. I met with the veterans around Veterans Day. We had lunch together and I got a chance to hear a little bit about their lives, which was very moving and important to me. I don't know about what the options are for additional space. I'd be very interested in hearing more about what the needs are. We do have all kinds of space constraints. We got buildings coming down rather than buildings going up, I'm afraid. And so that does impose some constraints. But going forward, I'm dreaming about redoing the pump house. And if we do, there will be some more space, I hope, for either administrative offices, which would free up space in this building, or maybe there would be space down there. I don't know where the right space would be. But let me just say this, that I believe this campus, once for all and forever, will be strongly committed to the veteran community. You may know that we suffered some very unfortunate vandalism to Veterans Memorial, and our campus stepped up and provided the resources to restore it and to make sure, and I asked for a surveillance camera over it so this couldn't happen again, I hope. In many ways, this campus reminds me, I mean, I shouldn't say reminds me because I wasn't there at the time, it reminds me of what I've read about what universities were like when veterans were in large numbers were on university campuses, and especially when soldiers were coming home from the Second World War. And what you saw then was the deep experience of worldliness that veteran students created when they were on campus in large numbers. Well, we have, even setting the veterans aside, a much more age diverse population on this campus than any other campus I know of, and I think that lends a kind of gravitas to the campus, a kind of sense of directionality, because the average age of our students is 26. That's significantly higher than any of the other campuses in the system, and I really appreciate what that diversity means, and a good part of that comes from the fact that we have so many veterans. So I would like to hear more about those needs. This is the first I've heard about the space concerns, and we've got lots of groups, of course, that would like more space, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't think very seriously about it, so I look forward to hearing more. It's about the most I can tell you right now. Yeah, do you want to?
I'd like to just say one thing. This is a quirky thing to add to your question from an academic point of view, but one of the exciting small things that I think is being done curricularly now for veterans is that there's a class being offered in the classics department for veterans only, which is a class in Homer's Iliad being read by veterans and connections made between PTSD in literature and PTSD in actual veterans' lives. So this is a very innovative kind of course for veterans only that you might look into.
Thank you. Back.
Hi, my name is Olivier. I'm a political science student, and I'm also a graduate in class of 2019. And I just wanted to ask a question about tenured professors. Is that, from my experience, I mean, most of my professors on campus have been great, but from my experience in the math department, professors are a little, lackluster. And I just wanted to know, what administration is doing about tenured professors who are getting horrible reviews at the end of the semester, and for some reason they still seem to, have the same actions and, how can I say this in a nice way? Carry themselves in the same way semesters after. For example, I have professors in the math department that don't show up to the first day of class, cancel class way too many times a semester, and things like that. And even if the whole class writes a horrible review, for some reason they're still here. It's I'm not saying you should fire them, but something should be done about it.
Okay,
I will let the chief academic officer take that one
That's
on.
me. Actually, you recognize the difficulty of tenure in when there are problems with the faculty. I mean, obviously, the tenure system is created historically to protect faculty's academic freedom, because there was always the sense that political forces could come, and if somebody said things in his class that were politically incorrect according to a political group, that person could be drubbed out. And so tenure was intended to protect academic freedom. It was never intended to protect incompetence. There's a tension in having a permanent appointment and needing to maintain the competence of your performance. At this campus, we're trying to push more on accountability for tenured faculty, as we do for non-tenured faculty and pre-tenure faculty. What I would say from a student point of view is usually students are too tolerant. And what I've found in my time at first as a dean and now as a provost is that when people are canceling their classes too often, when people are lackluster when students are still too nice to them. So the course evaluations come back pretty good at the end, because students don't want to attack somebody who might be a nice person but not doing a very good job. Every once in a while, students get so fed up that a class action group comes into a dean's office. It's usually in April, or in October, after things have gone so out of control in the class that that the students just boil over with frustration. If you report problems to the chair of the department early, every time there's a canceled class, the professor is supposed to be reporting that to the chair of the department that the class has been canceled. If you might just check, did you know that this class was canceled? There are ways to bring it to the attention of the department chair and the dean that problems are happening before they get to the point of boiling over. And in those cases, when faculty do not meet their minimum responsibilities, we do proceed against them with disciplinary action, with loss of salary, with various measures, but we need to know what's happening. So students have a role in making sure we know when things like this are happening.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to have a question for you.
Okay.
I'm Mitchell Cameron. I am a sophomore English major. And I am, so I have a minor in German studies through the Modern Languages department. And this semester there was, what happened was I was supposed to be taking the highest level German class, which is a 202 class. And the class wound up being canceled because not enough students were registered for it. What happened was it was coming to the beginning of the semester, we only had 3 students registered. The trouble was, however, the class was only offered at an 8 a.m. slot Tuesday, Thursday. I spoke with the teacher who's going to be teaching that class, and she said that that was the only time slot that they were able to receive a room that had the facilities that they required, that fit in with the teacher's schedule. And I know that so that was very unfortunate for me, and fortunately I still have enough time to make up the class, but I know that there are other students in the minor program who were scheduled to graduate, and this is a requirement. And so the director of the program ended up signing off, allowing them to waive this qualification so that they could graduate, but they are graduating with a subpar language proficiency that they were meant to be given. And I know that speaking with the professors further, I know that they're continuing to struggle to drum up enough students, definitely, absolutely, but then also support within the system. They're having a hard time making this, giving this niche program. It's kind of like, I don't want to say crumbling, but not in the best place right now. They're having a hard time keeping it going. And I was wondering what the school is doing and can be doing to support niche programs like that don't have a lot of student support, but are still vital to make the campus, to make the school a diverse school with lots of different fields of study going on.
Those are very, very important questions and difficult to answer, basically. I think the campus has a general rule that for an undergraduate class to run, it should have 12 students enrolled in it. For a graduate class to run, at least at the master's level, it should have 8 students enrolled in it, and PhD classes can usually get away with a few fewer than 8. Those rules are norms, but we always make exceptions. Usually by the end of the semester, I think we have about 50 or 60 exceptions, classes that we allow to run small, because precisely for these reasons, usually because it's needed for a student to progress in degree and move on. But a class with 3 people in it is not usually going to be one of the exceptions. I mean, there's problems there. Now, as for niche programs, I'm a foreign language professor. My heart goes out to foreign language programs. Right now in the United States, there is a terrible assumption that foreign language is not all that necessary for American students, which I think is one of the most misguided assumptions in education today. However, some of the language programs are struggling not only on this campus but nationally. We actually had eliminated our German program at one point. And so the fact that this program exists is because of the great faith that the College of Liberal Arts placed in language instruction and hired in a new tenure stream faculty member in German studies to try to revive the program. And so yes, it's struggling a little bit, but we've got exciting new faculty doing exciting new things to try to bring it back. Get your friends to take German. I mean, it's a field that has great teaching possibilities. The faculty are great. Yes.
So I also wanted to say that we're working with the faculty in that department, enrollment management, to market German, both to current students and to new students. And so we worked with them to put together a strategy so that students can be aware of all benefits of studying German, of the wonderful things that we offer as opportunities for students who are in it. And so we've been sending out communications strategically to different groups of students with different messaging in it so that we can hopefully nail this problem by not having just 2 or 3 students in the classes, but rather have a more robust group of students interested. So strategies like for science students to understand the linkages with studying German and science and trying to get a broader audience thinking about German.
Thank you. Are there any other audience questions? Go over there.
Hi, my name is Michelle Martins. I'm a sophomore political science major, and I've been working you got an email from me last week about merit scholarships and what those cover. So I've been working my way around the university and finding who was the right person to talk to about this. But I think that merit scholarships are way too limited with what they actually cover, just because I think that the students that get the merit scholarships are the types that want to go above and beyond and go out of their way to take CAPS courses because this is the only class that they can fit in with their internship on a Saturday morning or something like that, or dual enrolling at a different college, or just making their education work for them the best it can, and trying to find things at other colleges that fit their needs, as well as wanting their degree from UMass Boston like I do, because I don't want my degree from anywhere else, but we don't offer a program that I want. So I think that my question, I guess, is what are the chances that merit scholarships are going to be more inclusive with what they cover? Sure.
So first I want to say that we do give quite substantial amounts of money out for merit scholarships. We offer $6.5 million that we give out to incoming students on their way in for scholarships that are renewable for 4 years. We also have a universal form that students can fill out so that they can be eligible for all the scholarships that we offer in terms of the alumni donations for scholarships, so that students don't have to fill out multiple forms, but it's a universal. And we've done some other steps to try to help students. So if you had a merit scholarship and your GPA went down and you lost it, we're giving students the ability to get it back if they bring their GPA back up, so that it's not as lost forever. And so our Alumni Association is actively trying to raise more money for more merit scholarships. But I would say the best thing you could do is to visit Dan up in the scholarship office and hook into that one short form form you fill out, and that puts you in the queue for a whole lot of money.
But I think the question that you have, which I understand, we need to, because I wrote back to you that we would be looking into this, had to do with what you can use a merit scholarship to pay for. We have been discussing this with respect to CAPS. We understand that that would be very valuable. We're looking at the financial ramifications of that. I will be honest with you, I think it's unlikely that we're going to use merit scholarships to enable students to take courses at other universities. I just don't think, I'm not sure very many universities, if any, actually do that, because the main purpose is to support your education here. But I recognize that that's an issue, and it's particularly an issue if we don't offer something that you're particularly interested in, and that is a limitation. I own up to that limitation. So your question was very well intended and well received, and I've sent it off to, for analysis from the people who know more about financial aid policy than I do. But I think that our first and primary responsibility is to support your financial needs on our own campus, to be perfectly honest, and I don't think other campuses are much different.
I would add that we do have a plan to take online courses that are given presently through CAPS and move them into the regular departments. We were hopeful that we were going to be able to do that by this coming fall, but the implementation has proved very problematic, so we've had to defer that probably till fall of 2020. At that point, merit scholarships will cover CAPS online classes, because online classes will become regular classes. But there will be trade-offs, because right now online classes are cheaper because they're given as continuing education and then at continuing education rates. If we move them into the regular departments, they'll become more expensive because regular tuition costs more, but they'll be subject to waivers, so that they might cost nothing if you have a scholarship that covers them. These are complications that we're trying to cost out and try to figure out what is really to the benefit of the students. And stay tuned, because we're really trying to work it out and make it better for students. But for the moment, we've decided that it's better to keep the lower rates in CAPS instead of moving the courses into regular tuition rates without knowing the actual cost effect on students to do that.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Jen Martinez. I'm a doctoral student in clinical psychology. And so my questions focus specifically around support for graduate students and doctoral students specifically, because we're in a unique position where our doctoral education and work is our full-time job, and yet when there are changes to the budget, it seems like our stipend, really modest stipend, is always threatened to be cut from the budget, and the programs are already set up where this is supposed to be our full-time job, and so there's also been a lot of, within the department's pressure to get external funding. And I've been fortunate enough to get external funding, but then I run into the issue of, I don't know if it's because of administrative turnover and people having part-time positions, it's been really hard to do research and have the administrative support on this campus. And so I'm curious of what efforts there are to support students to continue that support, and also to support research on this campus.
Well, that is just an enormous question. It's also a very important question, of course, because this is a research university. We're proud of that. It's part of what makes your degree so valuable. It's part of what attracts a really strong faculty here, because the research enterprise is pretty sacred to faculty members. I do think that it is very important for us to support graduate study. I mean, you can't really have a robust research university without a strong graduate component, because it's essential to so many fields, and whether that's in the humanities or in the sciences, and in the laboratories that are critical for scientific discovery. I do think in general the University of Massachusetts system is underfunding graduate students, and we need to do more. That is very costly, and I won't kid you that cost is a significant issue. We are in a very cost-constrained environment, and it's one in which there's certain trade-offs that nobody really is happy about between the numbers of students and the amount that we can provide for each student. And there's a lot of internal debate, I think, for any scholar about which model is better. Fewer number of students and more robust support for them, or a larger number of students and more people who are helping to pay for themselves. I happen to think you're absolutely right. Graduate school is not a part-time enterprise. It is intended to be your full-time career, leading toward a full-time career that hopefully pays you a lot more than when you're a graduate student. The question is, how do we make that possible within the budget that we have? And here I encourage all of you and all of your parents to be active voters, because the amount of support we receive from the state has been declining sharply over the last 20, 30 years. And that is one of the reasons why we are as constrained as we are. The main revenue source we have to support graduate students is undergraduate tuition. And there are limits to how high we can or should raise it. But there's a very direct relationship between pressures on undergraduate tuition and the stipend levels that are provided for graduate students. There's no free lunch here, especially for you. I'm very well aware of that. So all I can say is that as someone who has trained generations of graduate students myself, and who values very much the contributions graduate students make to the richness not only of the faculty's world, but of the undergraduates. They are providing a tremendous amount of the most impactful teaching that happens on any campus, that we should be supporting you as robustly as we possibly can. Now that doesn't answer your question really, other than to say I agree with you and I wish we could do much more. And we do look at these trade-offs, and we work to talk about, or at least we talk about how we could try to do better. We encourage the faculty to develop training grants, for example, and we have some amazing training grants here. The U54 grant that supports cancer research is an extraordinary grant which has been going on for, I think, 15 years, something like that now, which is really impressive. Your program in clinical psychology is also an enormously robust and important program, and it is supported in part by the positions in the counseling center that help to support the undergraduate student and everyone else's needs for mental health services. So I think I have to say to be continued about this, but I recognize the problem. I'm sympathetic to it. I think you're right. The question is, how do we afford it under these circumstances?
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
My name is Tariq. I'm a gender studies and math student, and I have two questions. One is more academic related. My first question is I intend to enter medical school, and because of that, I have to take prerequisites, of course. But because I'm a liberal arts major, I can't get into science classes until August. It's only for Bio 111 is only the enrollment is only for biochem and bio majors. My major is gender studies, so I would have to wait until August to enroll in my class, or that's what my advisor told me. And then one of the suggestions my advisor made is that I could declare a bio major, and then that way I could enroll in class immediately and pick a lab. But I would just say, how would you respond to the fact that medical students who may not have a science major do actually have to wait to build their schedule for the science prerequisites? And so I don't want to declare a bio major every time I want to get into a science class. I don't want to do that every time. So.
Okay, you've stumped me. You've hit me with what I don't know. So let me look into it. And if you talk to me at the end of the time and give me your email address, I'll get back to you.
But let me just say, because I have studied this a little bit, that medical schools are very interested in having students who major in something other than the sciences. They are also interested in science students, but increasingly they are eager to have students who have a different kind of background, in part because they've discovered over time that good doctors are made of lots of different kinds of students. And you can see this reflected in the breadth of the MCAT exam, which is now includes sections on ethics and statistics and all kinds of areas it didn't used to. The social sciences are in that exam area, and that is a recognition, because that's a huge, like, turning the Titanic move of the interest medical schools have in a broader education. So I will let the provost answer the question about enrolling in bio classes, because I don't actually know about those restrictions myself. But I would say more power to you, because there is a very strong interest in seeing a broader academic diversity in medical schools today.
I also had another question. This is directed to the entire panel. With the various responses of news outlets and press to events that have occurred over the past 2 semesters, does the institution have any plans for how to handle and respond to all of the attention it has been receiving?
Well, lately the attention has been very positive, so our reaction is bravo. I think the dominance of the Boston Globe in our community is a mixed blessing. I will tell you that when I was the provost on the Amherst campus, no reporter ever got in a car to drive 2 hours to find out, how the food was in the dorm or the elevators. Being in a fishbowl, which is where we are, means that we're exposed to more scrutiny. And there's a benefit to that, but there's also a downside to it. Lately, I would say that the campus has been receiving a lot of positive attention, and I know how much this matters to the students. I have had students come up to me and say, I wish the Globe had a more positive view of our campus, because I feel like it's hurting me personally when it's riding the campus down. And of course, your faculty often feel the same way, and certainly I do. Not that we need, the assent of a newspaper to know how good we are, but we would like people to have a positive opinion, because when you go forth and leave us, we'd like them to think you got your degree from a first-class institution, which is what we believe we are. So in terms of our current approach, we are attempting to let people know when we're doing things that are innovative. Some of you may have seen the article that was last week about the business clusters, the industry clusters that are beginning to meet here. We had the first one this morning, and we had an extraordinary turnout of finance professionals, executives who are in every major finance company in Boston. Come here and spend half a day here learning about our programs in the College of Management and exchanging ideas about how they can be tailored to suit a more technologically sophisticated environment, which is what many finance industries are in. And they talked about increasing the number of interns brought from UMass to their companies. We're going to have, probably some 20 odd of those clusters by the time we're done, in all kinds of areas, in communications, in the arts, in public service, in all of the business disciplines, in biotechnology, and so on. So we're sort of getting warmed up for what Bayside might mean for the campus. And we were very pleased that people noticed that. In fact, I was told, I haven't heard it, but I did an interview with WBUR about it yesterday, and I was told it aired this morning, but I missed it because I was at work. So we do try hard to get the positive word out, and you know what? Honestly, that depends as much on you as it does on us. If you have a positive point of view and you communicate that to people who call you and ask you, that's bound to go somewhere. And I think it's to the benefit of all of us. We don't want it, we're not going to tell you how to describe your university experience, but it certainly does help if you have a positive point of view to tell somebody.
I'd like to add to that point. I know this time last year, we were kind of in hot water with the UMass Amherst acquisition of Oneida, and then the failed chancellor search. I was very vocal about it, and I know mass media did an excellent job covering that, as well as the Boston Globe very much covering it. And I think it came after that kind of got people looking at what is happening on the campus, and then with the issues with the dorms, my sister had texted me, and a friend of hers, she's a senior in high school, and somebody was saying like, oh, I just committed to UMass Boston, and someone said, why? Their dorms suck. Why would you do that? And they're saying all this stuff about Boston Globe, so my sister is texting me and being like, oh, is this true? What is happening? And she's spitting back the information that I had and was giving it to her, and someone turned around and they said, well, where do you know this? And she goes, don't believe everything you read. And so I think not everybody is like that. You kind of have to take everything with a grain of salt. I mean, there has been a significant bias with specifically some journalists in the Boston Globe, and I think it has hurt the reputation, I would say, of the institution. But you also need to see, like, I wrote an article for mass media at the beginning of the year saying you need to understand the good of this campus. Please name me a campus where students will get up in hundreds to go fight something that they believe in. And please name me a campus that students will sit here and say, hey, Chancellor, these are my issues, can you please talk to me about them? Please name me a campus that will be so active and there was a lot of residents that looked at that article and said, that's not true. And they went, and as you guys published, a counter article to that. And I think that shows in numbers kind of who wants mom and dad to see them on the news station and who really cares about the institution and wants them to really believe what it is. And I think the students that, and listen, you can get caught up and get fury and get heated, because I did. But looking back at it, and if I was a year older, I probably would have done maybe some things differently. But you need to kind of come back and say, this is my institution, and the reason I'm acting the way is because I care about it. And yes, you're going to get negative media, but you also have to counter that and say, look at all these amazing opportunities that we're going to offer our students. And I think the Boston Globe should focus on that and not what the meat is cooked like in the dorms.
Thank you. Yeah.
I'm Lisa Jones. I'm a political science major, and I'm also a resident in the dorms to give you some context. I was wondering, due to UMass Boston now trying to become a 24/7 campus, is there any plans in the works to have the University Health Services open on the weekends as well? Because I know at least of one injury that happened on a weekend that could have been dealt with at UHS, but the girl had to have her health care outsourced because services were available to her.
Yeah, Rob is here, and I think he could probably speak to it. I will tell you that there was a model when I was in college. This was a very long time ago, very long time ago. And we had infirmaries, and you could go and you could spend a night there. It was really cool, and I actually did. But it's not a model that's sustainable. And so quite honestly, I'm not sure I know a campus that has that extensive of offerings. And so we have some other ways of helping students as a 24/7, like other campuses do. And so maybe, Rob, you could speak to that as to how we address a student who has a need, a medical need over the weekend.
Well, our primary resource is the 24/7 line. It's not just a counseling line. There is access to a registered nurse who is able to offer advice and guidance on how to proceed after doing the triage on the phone. The model of having UHS services, medical clinic that's open 7 days a week is an extremely expensive option. We do not have the kind of staffing required to have a fully operational medicine clinic 24/7. You would need at least 4 staff available 7 days a week, and it's just not, as Gail mentioned, it's not a sustainable model. So we rely on the 24/7 line, and we rely on the area providers, urgent care clinics, and the hospitals in the area.
Thank you. Are there any other audience questions? If you could just state your name, your major, and class year.
Hi, I'm John Ray. I'm currently a sophomore in IT. I just have a quick question regarding some of the features that the campus offers, specifically with the music and arts department in the University Hall. As a musician, a content creator, and hoping to pursue dance, one of the issues that I face is using the recording studios, something like renting out like cameras or the dance studios. Time and time again, I would try and use some of the features there, but I would always be given the explanation only music majors or people like taking this class or something like that are allowed to like use these amenities or features. So it's frustrating sometimes because like especially during like finals, if I just want to wind down or like make a song or something like that, I just use those studios. And especially since as like a STEM major, I don't have the time to like add like a music class or like that photography class, that I could use those features. So coming from your side, is there anything that you can do about it?
That's another question I actually don't really know the answer to. I'm going to guess that those classes are heavily subscribed and that the resources we have sort of tend to be used first for our classes and that there's not a lot left over. But I recognize the desire and the importance of, and I applaud you for being a STEM major with all of these broad interests. You know, I've heard this said on every campus I've worked on, that the practice rooms in particular tend to be heavily oversubscribed and restricted to majors because there isn't even enough for them. I'm not sure what the solution is. I'm glad you asked the question, and I will certainly see what our music department has to say about it, but my guess is they're going to tell me that these are heavily oversubscribed and reserved for students who are in classes because otherwise they would have to be denied what they need to get through the class. So maybe you can find some room in your program for a class. That would be my suggestion, but we'll check into it. I don't honestly know the answer to your question.
Thank you. Any other audience questions? All right, seeing none, I guess we'll go back to some of the submitted questions and then we'll start to wrap up.
I'm afraid I have to leave now, so I will leave the rest of you to the submitted questions. Thank you very much, friends.
Thank you.
And just to plug, if there's any other questions that you may think of, these are the emails for Chancellor Newman, Gail, myself, Luna, and Sara. Feel free to email those. All of the questions that were submitted before that haven't been answered will all be answered and we'll put up on this website. We're recording this, so that will be put up on the website. So if you haven't been able to have your question answered, it will be at some point in person or via the website that you can share with everybody else as well.
Thank you. This question is directed to student trustee Tariq. How has your experience been sitting on the board of trustees, seeing as every member is an older / accomplished male or female?
I would say it's been an honor representing the UMass Boston students on the board. But oftentimes I get asked, like, you are just a student, how does it feel to sit with people who are much, much older, who are professionals, lawyers in real estate? My job is to provide the student perspective to the board on the policies that they are making. And they take it just as importantly as any other member on the board. I tell this to people all the time, that if you don't know something, obviously there's stuff that they talk about, there are terms that I might not be familiar with, and there are terms that some other student trustees might not be familiar with. And that goes to like all of the people here too. If you are not familiar with a policy or something, just go ask the question, schedule a meeting with the person. An example of that is, when I got elected after 2 weeks, they had a special board meeting to increase tuition, to which, by the way, my vote was a no. And you're welcome. So, I mean, the tuition got increased, but my vote was a no, unfortunately. There were many things that they were going to discuss in the meeting that I didn't know, because they were discussing the whole budget of the UMass system. It's a pretty big deal. And what I did was I scheduled a meeting with the vice president of the UMass, system, who takes care of the admission and finance, that part. And that's just an example of how people can, what you students can do on this campus too, and on the board, whether you're in Katie's position or in Sam's position, when you're dealing with, when you're just a student and you're with people who are professionals in their fields. And to go back to that question, I think they take that student perspective very, very seriously, and I hope they continue to do so.
Thank you. Sorry, I just lost my place. This is a question for Gail. What has your office accomplished this year? What are you currently working on that will have a direct impact on students, something that they'll be able to physically see?
Wish you asked me that last year. I could have said, we opened the residence hall. So, I think that the residence hall and the efforts to move us in the direction of 24/7 has probably been some of our greatest accomplishments. And I can't say that I've done any of this. I mean, I get to work with all these wonderful people throughout the campus who make these accomplishments happen. So I'm going to talk about a few of these things, but I can't take credit for them. So I think that the work that we're seeing with the immigrant student program and the leadership training that's coming out of that group is a great accomplishment this year. We've come a long way in that particular arena. I think that the work that our counselors, I know we said we're short-staffed, but the numbers that they see are just, they've gone way up. Our police department responding, the response time and the number of responses that they've had have doubled this year. Our care cases in the Dean of Students office in some periods of time, some months have actually quadrupled this year. So being responsive, I think, is probably the biggest accomplishment. We've also seen some changes in the way that we've approached our social media. Again, I think that we've got ways to go before we sleep on that particular issue. What do I think you're going to see by the end of the year? That's a good question. I knew that I was going to get asked that question, and I can't remember what I said to myself that I was going to say. But I think we've had some great accomplishments through the course of the year. I think our leadership development, our leadership opportunities continue to grow. I guess I would say that UAccess is one of those areas that's continuing to grow, and the number of employment opportunities that are starting to become open and that's going to grow some more. So you're going to see more employment opportunities with UAccess, and therefore through these engagement of student employment, we believe that we'll be able to serve and we'll see more students taking advantage of that particular, which is, in my mind, one of the most critical things that we do on this campus, is to provide the benefit screenings, the food service, the food pantry, the tax service, the tax and financial service, and the legal advising that comes out of UAccess is probably one of the most critical things that we do, and we're going to continue to build that program and grow it, and that's all I have to say for now.
Thank you.
Our next question is, in what ways are student and campus leadership reaching out to the student body, and how do you feel about the results of this outreach, if any?
Can you repeat that?
Yes. In what ways are student and campus leadership reaching out to the student body, and how do you feel about the results of this outreach, if any?
I think email is kind of a big thing, and it blows my mind how people don't check their email. I'm on it more than I text people, but so I think that's a very big way. We do not receive much of a response on, like email, flyering. Even for this event, we tabled, I think, 4 or 5 times, trying to get people and physically stopping them to get there. Those ways have not all seemed productive, I would say. I don't know of any other ways to try to contact people, because I just don't think that they, different avenues. During the elections process, I sat on the USG account and messaged every single person that we follow, that was a UMass account, to say, can you please publish this on your story or on your just a post, thinking that was a kind of a mass way to do it. And even so, the responses were low. Not of the people applying, they posted they were great, but their responses of likes or people kind of seeing those posts. So that's the way that we do it. I don't think anybody's found something that is concrete, this is the way to do it. I would love to find something that would reach a broader amount of students that would see it. I just don't know if that exists.
I would add that some of the personal touches that I think we've been trying to make to outreach to students have been really important. They may not be the thousands of students, but they certainly have brought us some great input and great opportunity to connect with students. I'll point out our Dean of Students is in the back of the room, and John has been, and his team have been offering bagels with the deans Tuesday mornings, so that has been a huge success. I've been getting out and having listening sessions with students. I've met with all of the centers. I have a student advisory board. Dining, Diane, wherever you are, Dining has created a student advisory board. And the residence halls have a student advisory board as well, and are working with student government, as I understand it, to create an RHA for next year. So there are pockets of these efforts to reach out and to get input and to try to improve the conversation and understand what we really need to have happen on this campus for students. We do welcome, like he said, I think we welcome the ideas for how to do it at scale, and this is one of the ways that we're trying to make it happen.
I just wanted to add what we have done from the GSA perspective. Actually, since last year when I was running campaign, I personally went to each and every graduate student classroom to tell them not only to vote for me, but also what GSA does for them, including the research grant, conference travel grant, the student club funding. I think out of all the methods that we have tried to use, the social media, the mass email, person-to-person contact is the most effective way for us. So far, we haven't really exceeded that. Well, getting more people, reaching out to more students is definitely a major goal for us this year, which I wouldn't say that we accomplished this, but we're working towards that. And I was hoping next year or future years, GSA board can achieve a higher level of results than we do. That being said, I wanted to make a point that when we, it's not, excuse me, it's not that we reach out to students, it's how students find us. We have all the resources, we advertise them, but if you don't pay attention, you won't know what we have. It's like when you go to job market, when you want a job in the industry, you don't sit there and ask your career service counselor, do you have any job for me? What can you provide for me? But you will ask your career counselor, where can I find a job that I can do? I think we have done all that we can possibly think of, we can possibly imagine to reach out to students. And I think it would do us a great favor if students themselves just ask what's going on campus, and then we'll always have the answer for that.
Thank you. We're just going to go with our last submitted question, then we'll jump to audience before we end this town hall. So this is just a general question to anyone that wants to answer this. What is your plans for the future of the school? It's a very broad and open question, but anything you have in mind or you'd like to say?
May 31st. I'm just kidding.
Well, you know what, I think maybe we'll rely on the chancellor to answer that question in a written form. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds fine.
But
She's our leader.
we certainly could mention that the next phase of construction is definitely going to beautify this campus. When that science building is knocked down, and that is a whole quad for students, and you have a view out to the water because the science building won't be blocked. We've had meeting after meeting about how the space could be utilized and how they're making the space so it's sections and can be utilized by students for all kinds of things. So I definitely know we are building a more beautiful campus for students. And, we have found a developer for the Bayside area, so that is going to be developed. This campus is going to be absolutely magnificent when all these plans are realized. And, I think that just the student success that the campus is now placing, the campus is placing emphasis and energy into student success. So we're no longer just trying to bring new students in, but rather lots of focus on how to take care of students when they're here. All kinds of things around early alert, better academic advising, case management with advising. So there's a whole lot of energy around really taking care of students once they're here. And I know that when you talk about communicating to students, we've been using a lot more text messaging. You know, we know from the literature that students in Generation Z only open their emails about 20% of the time, so they're not really using email. And so, you know, it's kind of taking the old methods of communicating that so many of us were so used to from previous generations and saying, how does this new generation receive information when literally 50% of what they're doing is in a virtual world? They're always online, social media, all of the things coming at students. And so it's rethinking the way we communicate with students. And we've been very successful. I want to point out John Drew in the back room. He's done a lot of things to work with people on campus to try to make sure students, you know, have the ability to register. So looking at how we have flags on accounts, whether students have small balances so they can't register. So that there's lists of things that we have been doing, all in the effort to make students' experience here better and to help students succeeding with their degrees.
Thank you. I think we have one audience question, then we'll wrap up from there. No? Okay, then.
Coach,
Yes.
I just want to say just a cheesy answer to that question because I was being snarky about commencement. So I think, like, for as a student who, and I say this to administrators, and I wish, I don't know if Diana's still in the room, but she'd probably get mad at me for saying this, but I mean, for students, their kind of timeline on this university is, I would say, 4 to 6 years, if you're realistically thinking about it. So to say, oh, what's your view for the campus in the future? It's like, well, my view stops the second I walk across that stage. Now, you can get involved in alumni. I know Gail. You can get involved in alumni stuff, and you can still come back and work on the campus. But I think that's more of a question for students that are freshmen, sophomores, or have a longer period, that are maybe doing a master's or a PhD program here. I don't think that's a question that Sara and I, Luna, I don't know when you're getting your degree, but I think that's a question that maybe you or Sam should ask yourselves, and other students in this room need to ask themselves, or what is the view for my campus? What do I want to do? Because you have more time than a month and a half that Sara and I have. Yes, we can work with the Alumni Association and things like that, but my clock's running out. And so I think that's not a question for us, but a question for incoming and future students, that they really need to look at and say, what do I want to do when I'm here? And I need to do that.
But remember that your degree stays with you for your whole life.
Yes.
And remember this, that for every place that I've graduated, that credential has followed me through my whole journey in life. And every time my alma maters get better, are more attractive, you know, the value of my degree keeps increasing. And so one of the things I want to say for those of you that are exiting, you are in a really great place to be at a campus that has these wonderful plans so that your degree will become more valuable. And so, you know, even for the current students to think, I'm at a place on the move as opposed to a place that's retrenching or not doing things, and where your degree would become less valuable. And so I think that's a real important message for students to know, that you want your alma mater to keep getting better, to keep hiring great faculty, to have great research conducted here, because your degree will be more and more valuable.
You can't get rid of me, sorry.
Amazing comments. And we'd just like to close off with if you have any final statements to share with our audience.
Yeah. Thank you for coming. Hopefully, well, I won't be here, but hopefully
you haven't graduated yet.
Well, I won't be able to do anything in a month and a half of this nature, but hopefully, please keep your eye out for this again. Thank you so much, and please take food over there.
Scan in back your students, you get a chance to.
Don't forget to scan.
And a few last comments.
Before
we
we
want
go, yes,
to
so
remind you.
safety walk is tomorrow. If you show up, where do they show up, Gail?
show up at the residence halls at 8 p.m. on tomorrow, April 10th. If you're one of the first 20 people, you can get one of these stylish hats. And additionally, we just want to thank you all, as Katie said, for coming out. Keep an eye out for our showcases, 16th, 17th, 29th, and 30th, and our mental health week the last week of April.
Thank you.
Penny.